Today, we're diving into a recovery manual that's incredibly powerful and just unflinchingly honest. But here's the thing, this wasn't written by a doctor or some theorist. It's from someone who actually lived through decades of addiction and mental health struggles, and somehow, just somehow, managed to pull himself back from the very edge. Let's get into how he did it.
And that edge, wow, it appeared so much earlier than you could possibly imagine. This single sentence from the author it's just shocking. It really sets the stage for a journey that starts in early childhood and spirals into this unimaginable darkness, long before there's even a glimmer of light.
So, to really understand the recovery, you first have to understand the descent. This isn't just a story about addiction. No, it's a story about deep-seated trauma and that desperate, frantic search for any kind of escape. I mean, just look at this timeline. It's absolutely staggering. A traumatic event hits him at age 10, and it just shatters his world. The fallout is immediate. Sports are gone, replaced by drugs. The drinking just ramps up and up. And by the time he's only 16 years old, he's already landed in a psychiatric hospital. The speed of this whole collapse, it's just terrifying.
So in this desperate attempt to find any kind of structure, any kind of lifeline, he joined the Marine Corps. But that core problem, it just followed him right in. His drinking got so out of control that it led to another hospitalization and eventually a discharge. What he'd hoped would be his great escape route just turned into another dead end.
The real bottom, though, that came a bit later. He talks about waking up one morning in a friend's absolutely filthy apartment. And it wasn't even the squalor that fazed him. It was the physical state of his own body. He was so dehydrated from alcohol that he said his mouth felt like it was coated in glass.
And right there, in that moment of just pure physical misery, one single clear thought managed to cut through all the chaos. Something has to change. And what's so important here is that this wasn't some big intellectual decision. It was a moment of complete and total surrender. It was the point where the fight was finally over. And because of that, the path to getting help could actually begin. But here's the thing. Getting sober, that was only the beginning of the battle. For the next 8 years, he was wrestling with a bipolar disorder that was just starting to emerge. It was a period he calls the Precipice, a time where he was pushed to the absolute limits of his own sanity. Just look at these numbers. This wasn't some kind of steady recovery path. It was a brutal cycle of extreme crisis, over and over again. 11 ER visits, more hospitalizations, multiple incarcerations. And he was being met with force, tasers, pepper spray, restraints, when what he really needed was medical help for these manic episodes that he didn't even understand yet. And this all leads to the most harrowing experience of all. During one of his incarcerations, he's in the middle of a severe manic episode, and his pleas for medication are just ignored. His desperation gets so bad that he fakes a heart attack and then even resorts to self-harm, just trying to get some kind of medical attention. It totally backfired.
Instead, he was taken to the solitary psychiatric wing. They stripped him of his clothes and put him in a thin paper suit. The cell itself was freezing, around 45 degrees, with absolutely nothing, no mat, no blanket. He was just left there, all alone in the cold and the dark.
And what happened next, it just shows you the absolute sheer depth of his suffering. When they finally gave him a thin mat, his survival instinct took over in the most visceral way you can imagine. Deep in psychosis and just desperate, he chewed a seam open on the mat and crawled inside. He was doing anything he could possibly think of to escape the cold and find even a single moment of relief. It's almost impossible to imagine surviving that. But it was from that precipice, from that absolute rock bottom, that he forged the very tools he needed to climb back. This is where all that pain starts to transform into a practical, real-world manual for recovery. He basically distilled his survival down into 5 simple but incredibly powerful concepts. These aren't complex psychological theories, They are practical, hard-won strategies that really form a complete toolkit for managing your mind and your environment just one day at a time. So let's walk through how each of them works. Okay, so the first couple of tools are all about winning the immediate battle, right now. When your past is filled with trauma and your future feels terrifying, the only safe place is today. The 24-hour concept is like a mental anchor. You just have to get through today. And that pairs perfectly with the first drink/drug concept, which is all about recognizing that the entire relapse starts with that one single choice. So the goal isn't this overwhelming idea of staying sober forever. It's just to not take that first drink today.
All right, so the next three tools are about actively rebuilding your life. It starts with the I statement, which is a way to literally rewrite your inner monologue. The author learned that his mind believed whatever he told it followed the word I. So he had to consciously, deliberately change the script from I am hopeless to I can fix this. Then, he changed his environment by applying the people, places, and things rule to avoid his triggers. And finally, he embraced this idea that depression can't hit a moving target. This simple truth that action, any small positive action, creates momentum and makes it so much harder for that negativity to take root.
And you see, these tools, they're not just about stopping destructive behaviors. They are the actual foundation for building something completely new, a life that has real meaning and purpose. The cornerstone, the absolute bedrock of his entire recovery journey, comes down to this: personal responsibility. He realized that, yeah, while other people could guide him, nobody could do the work for him. True, lasting change only started when he accepted that he, and only he, could control his own thoughts and actions. He had to fix himself. And this is where the story finds its ultimate purpose. After surviving something that is just unimaginable, his purpose became crystal clear. He took all of that pain and transformed it into a mission to help other people navigate their own darkness. That service, he says, is what makes his life worth living. And that really brings us to the core takeaway from this incredible manual. It all starts with a single thought. So the question it leaves us with is a really personal one. If we apply the lessons from the Precipice to our own lives, what is one negative thought that you can challenge, that you can reframe, and that you can change, starting today?